Hello all, it's Thursday of week 5. It's October, and Module 2 is due this Sunday, October 4th, uploaded to D2L by 10 a.m. In this video, I want to talk a bit about the CREP principles and illustrate how they can be best used in document design. And then I'm going to provide an overview of Module 2 along with some sample student work to give you a sense of what you might do and what I'm looking for. We've already read about CREP, discussed rhetorical variables, and explored design principles, so this is primarily a recap, but illuminated with examples. Our rhetorical considerations are audience, purpose, and context, and our design principles include contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Our document design considerations include things like margins, blank or white space, paragraph spacing, line spacing, letter case, the use of color, and much more. And for all of these, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity are excellent tools. But I also want to point out this important quote that should inform all of our design work. That is, the intelligent and informed management of white space will do more to improve your visual communication than any other design decision. So yes, all of our design elements are important, but perhaps more important is what's not there. That is blank or white space in a document, that which contains or holds our text and our design elements. C is for contrast. Contrast can aid in the organization of information and create hierarchy. It can add clarity and make a page or screen look more interesting. The general rule of contrast is that if two items are different, make them really different. If we look at this business card, for instance, we see contrasts in the colors between the bold, bright pinks and the conservative, traditional black and gray. We also see a strong contrast between the font faces, between the conservative sans serif font face, the elegant cursive font, and the sloppy handwritten crud font. On this poster, the square, linear rectangles of the brick wall contrast with the wildly twisted shape of the man's body. And the drab, flat gray contrasts with the bright, vibrant orange. On this cover of a McDonald's annual report, the bold, bright blocks of color contrast with the lively photos, and the title of the report, set in black and white and taking up 3 boxes of space, contrasts with the rest of the content on the page. R is for repetition. Repetition can help unify elements across a document. Repetition can add visual interest and help develop organization and, importantly, consistency across a document. The 2 general rules of repetition are: first, repeat some aspect of a design throughout an entire page, a document, a website, etc. But don't repeat it so much that it loses meaning or becomes visually overwhelming. This is the Oxford Materials Science Application and Admissions booklet, and they repeat the Oxford Materials logo across the document in various interesting ways, so we're constantly reminded throughout and across the document that we're looking at the Oxford Materials booklet. This is the interior page of a Federal Trade Commission report, and you can see they repeat 2 key elements: a running header that includes the organizational author in a horizontal line, and then a running footer that includes the page number and horizontal lines. The American Academy of Pediatrics repeats icons across all its tip sheets, so similar information can be easily identified across different documents. The hand holding the baby icon represents families being prioritized, and the head with the cogs inside icon represents their sharing of information with partner organizations. This Starbucks Foundation booklet repeats the design of the Level 1 and Level 2 headings across the entire document. Level 1 headings are all caps, orange, and a sans serif font. Level 2 headings are medium blue, upper and lowercase, a serif font, and italicized. The design features of the Level 1 and 2 headings are not only repeated, but they also contrast well. And here we start to see the design principles layering together. We see good use of both repetition and contrast here. A is for alignment, which unifies and organizes a page or screen and helps create visual connections. Rules for good use of alignment include: nothing should be placed on a page arbitrarily. Generally, you want to avoid using more than 2 text alignments on one page or screen. You want to balance image and text alignment carefully. And remember, center and full alignment are more difficult on the eye. They're harder to read. In this example, we see the text is left justified, ragged right, with heading set flush left. In this example, the bulleted items are aligned with a hanging indent. Here, the year appears out of alignment with the rest of the document title, which calls attention to it. And on this cover of an annual sustainability report, the photos are aligned in columns and rows. Here we see images that are aligned flush left inside each paragraph in which they appear, and the text is aligned square around the images. On this page, the heading level 1 is aligned flush left, and the body text is generously indented. The text is left aligned with a ragged right margin. And in this example, the multiple and different alignments of the images within the figure of the woman create an interesting look and feel. P is our last letter, and P is for proximity. Proximity helps to organize elements and apply relationships. Proximity really helps manage blank or white space. And keeping elements in close proximity, close to one another, reduces clutter on a page or screen. The general rules of proximity are to create visual relationships with related elements, avoid too many separate elements on a page or screen, and never stick things in the corners or the middle of the page. Over the years, CNN has radically changed its web interface, but one element remains consistent. Across site designs, the main navigation always appears in close proximity, as we see here and here from 2016 and here from about a week ago. And this example is interesting because technically the top bar isn't the navigation, rather it's live updates. So they're still using the screen real estate, just in a slightly different way, and the elements still appear in close proximity. On the cover of this annual report, the logos of the two authoring organizations appear in close proximity. On this business card, the individual person's name and contact info is in close proximity, while the institute's name and contact info is also in close proximity. And you can see contrasting colors separate the information and create visual difference. So again, we're seeing these elements layer together. On this report, we see all of the images that relate to the page's content in close proximity arranged at the bottom of the page. And finally, in this interior page of a McDonald's sustainability report, we see related information appears in close proximity. And again, contrast in color is used to separate the different types of content. So you've read about the CRAP principles, we've talked about the CRAP principles, and now you've seen plenty of examples. Your work now is to put the CRAP principles to use and to work in Module 2, both in the design work that you do and in the explanation that you're going to include. For Module 2, we're going to work with text and typography in Microsoft Word. The purpose of Module 2 is to allow us to play around with some of the design and typographic principles we've read about and learn more about Word as a design tool. There are two products for Module 2, your design work and a brief explanatory document where you talk specifically about the design principles you put to use in creating your design. And note, as you're choosing a song or a poem, you do not have to redesign the entire song or poem. You can choose just a small chunk of it. Here's some Module 2 design work from students in the past. Oh, and I have to pause on this one. I loved first that she changed the page size, and you can see some other students played around with that too, from the default 8.5 by 11 to a 6 by 6 inch square. I also love how she used a smaller O to create a moon for the O in cosmonaut and chose a font face where the O was perfectly round like the shape of a moon. And here where she used S's to create the look of tangles. So the first part is your design work. The second part is your explanation, which offers two things. First, an explanation of the meaning of the song or poem, and then an explanation of your design decisions. So here are some student examples of the meaning of the song or poem they chose. So here's the design and the explanation. This student says this group gets classified as no-fi, even worse than lo-fi. And he says, that's how you got waves. It's punk rock, chopped, diced, and thrown into a blender. No Hope Kid is the epitome of this style. Here's another design. And I'll be honest, when I saw this, I was like, Rob, did you have to use all the fonts? But then I read his explanation, which started with, I chose this song because I like the sound of it. The Faint always struck me as a fun listening band. And then I read the lyrics. I went from hearing a happy dance song into a song about murder, vengeance, and a touch of insanity. Another example, this is the design work. And this is the student's explanation of her understanding of the piece. She wrote, the song is the artist's interpretation of Van Gogh's Starry Night. His skill in turning the movement and detail of the actual painting into a song is incredible. I interpret the song as a love song to Van Gogh. So you do the design work. You write an explanation of how you hear or understand the song or poem. In your explanation doc, your final step is to talk about the design decisions that you made. And here are a few examples. This student wrote, I only used 3 different fonts. I made the verse text a small font and a lighter gray because it represents the nature of the singer's thoughts. I chose to make the word silence prominent, to contrast with the white page. Here's a design example. And the student wrote, I chose a font called Dustimo Roman Italic for a spoken aloud feel and a serif font to pull the reader's eye from one letter to the next like a drawl of a speaker's voice would. I chose Dustismo for its legibility and its short ascenders and descenders and its contrast with the other font face I chose. One more example design explanation. This student wrote, I added the huge X for hierarchy on the page through contrast. I used proximity and white space to lead the viewer's gaze in multiple directions. So I hope it was helpful to see some examples. A few things to remember. I want you to design with crap in mind and explain with crap in mind. You must use Word for this assignment, and you must submit your work as PDF. As I shared on Tuesday, if you submit something like this as a Word doc, and I don't have the font faces you used installed, your work will likely look something like this, and your design will be entirely broken. Again, I hope these examples were inspiring and helpful as you get started. If you get stuck at all working on Module 2 or you have any questions about the assignment, please email me. And we're on a much tighter turnaround for this module. It's due this Sunday, October 4th by 10 a.m.